All right, welcome to the video, guys. Welcome to the video. So, in this video, I want to share with you my hyper productive week framework, the simple system I use to get more done in a week than most people get done in months. Now, in less than 30 minutes, I'll share with you the simple strategy my clients and I use to maximize our productivity and get more done in a week than most people get done in a year. Using this system, my clients and I have increased our revenue and profit, been able to get in better shape, attract an ideal partner, or at least attempt to go on multiple dates in order to attract an ideal partner. We've been able to make more time for our friends and family with less stress and less guilt. And we've been able to have more time for our hobbies and personal goals. Now, first of all, before I get into the actual steps of the system, before I get into the real meat and potatoes of everything, who am I and why should you listen to me? First of all, my name is Lenny Richardson, but I usually go by Leviticus Rich. I'm the founder of Productivity Accelerator. I'm the top productivity trainer in Northern Virginia. I'm a licensed real estate consultant, the author of multiple books, the former co owner of Affinity, and the creator of a former top podcast in Northern Virginia called Meeting Virginia. Using the exact 3 step system that I'm going to share with you shortly, I've been able to do numerous things, some of which include getting on the Dean's List while in college at Penn State, successfully creating one of the top podcasts in Northern Virginia. I've been able to get my real estate license, enjoy my hobby of writing and drawing more. I've been able to enjoy time with my friends and family without much guilt. I've been able to have more downtime and more leisure time in general, also without guilt. I've been able to go on numerous dates every single week and build an eventful social life, write an over 200-page book in about 3 months. And just for the record, this 200-page book that I wrote, which is called 27 by 27, you can kind of see a picture of it on the left-hand side of the screen. This book was originally going to be about 300, 400 pages, and I took a lot out of it in that 3-month time span. And I also made the font actually smaller than the average font you would find in books. So realistically speaking, it should still be about a 300-page book if I followed kind of standard font guidelines. But I say this just to give you an idea of how much work I was able to get done in such a short time frame. Additionally, I've also been requested to be a guest on numerous podcasts using this 3-step system. And I've been able to go from obese to 10% body fat, again, using the simple 3-step system. I've also been able to 5x my income in just a handful of years. And when I say a handful of years, I really mean less than a handful of years, because I've done all of these things within 4 years, but some of these things individually only took about a year, maybe 2 years, maybe a few months here and there. So this is just a kind of a sample of what you could possibly get done using this system that I'm going to share with you shortly. Now, before I get into the system itself, I do want to share with you this. What exactly is the purpose of this system? Why am I sharing this with you? One of my true beliefs in life is that the goal of life is to reach eudaimonia. And if you're not familiar with this phrase, eudaimonia, most people aren't super familiar with it. It's a Greek term which loosely means the good life or the fulfilled life. It was kind of coined by Socrates, and Aristotle and Plato kind of wrote more about it after Socrates died. Socrates didn't really write too much. He was more of he taught things orally to people. So they kind of took what he taught and they wrote about it. Not to get too deep into the history of the word itself, but essentially what it just means is flourishing or the good life or the fulfilled life. And his theory was that the good life is composed of 3 elements. And these 3 elements are what I call pillars. The first pillar is health. You need to have good health. This is physical health and this is mental health. The second pillar is wealth. And this doesn't mean you need to be rich, but it means you need to be living below your means. You need to have a certain degree of income that allows you to live comfortably. You don't want to be struggling, you don't want to be poor, but you don't need to be rich. The final thing is relationships. And this refers to relationships between yourself and your partner, romantic relationships, but it also refers to platonic relationships. You need to have good quality relationships in life. And by combining all 3 of these pillars, by doing all 3 of these things and constantly building upon all 3 of these areas, health, wealth, and relationships, Socrates believed that this is the sort of the formula that people should follow in order to have the highest quality life. And personally, I believe this to be true myself. And I'll share with you a little bit in just a second. But from personal experience, following these three steps and building up these three pillars has just tremendously changed my life. And I'm sure it'll change yours too if you do go about the practice of building up these three pillars. Now, where exactly did this formula come from? This formula that I'm going to share with you, where did this come from? I originally discovered this formula years ago. Back when I was in college, I went to Penn State, and it was a great time, but it was also some of the worst times in my life. I used to call it kind of like my dark ages. And I'm sure everyone's kind of had a similar situation where you've had an era in your life where things just didn't turn out exactly the way you hoped it would. At that time in college, I had what was known as a fixed mindset. It's still known as a fixed mindset. And if you're not familiar with what a fixed mindset is, essentially a fixed mindset is you don't believe that growth is possible. You don't believe that you can change as an individual. You believe that the cards that you were dealt with are the cards you're stuck with in life. So whatever your intelligence is, you're stuck with. If you are overweight, you're stuck with that. You can't lose weight. Does that make sense? That's what I had back in the day, a fixed mindset. I thought that, my current situation was what it is and I can't change, I can't grow, and I just need to accept things as they are. And the sad part of that was that life for me at that time, like I mentioned, wasn't that great. So I kind of went on believing that life would stay crappy, to put things simply. But that wasn't really the case. Now, things went from bad to worse gradually, and I eventually got kicked out of college. Actually, got kicked out of college twice. I got kicked out after about a year or so. Managed to get some money together, got back into college, but they still decided that I couldn't enroll. There was a lot of technical issues I won't get into in this video, but got kicked out a second time. And during this time period of me being kicked out of college twice, this was about maybe like a 2.5, 3 year time span. I ended up working numerous minimum wage jobs, still couldn't pay the bills. It sucked. I worked at Walmart, I worked at bars, I worked at a movie theater. I was all over the place. And life still did not improve for me. So one day I kind of sat there and I'd ask myself, how did my life become this? I had such a big ego at the time. Back, I went to a prep school, college prep school, St. Joe's Prep. I had a high GPA all through grade school, all through high school. In my mind, I thought I was super intelligent and it was impossible for me to fail. And to be honest, I kind of took life for granted. I took academics for granted. And of course, you take things for granted and you don't value things until you lose that thing that you don't value. Then all of a sudden, once you lose it, you value it more. So kind of being in the situation of just constantly living paycheck to paycheck, really below paycheck to paycheck, because I was always in the negatives, always. It was terrible. At this time, I was also overweight, couldn't get a girlfriend, didn't have a lot of like close friends. My situation felt inescapable in the grand scheme of things. And I ultimately felt lost and wanted answers on how to not feel like a loser. And the sad thing was that there was no one around me to really give me any answers. It's a college town. There's not really people around you that can sit there and say, "Oh, do this and your life will improve." So I had to kind of go figure this out on my own. And so the first thing I could come up with, and the thing that made the most sense to me, was go read books. If I can't find people that are living the life I want to live or people that can give me solutions that can help me, why not go read books where people who have lived a certain quality lifestyle or people who are significantly further ahead of me can share their stories, can share their anecdotes, can share their lessons that they've learned in their lives. Why not read those books and absorb their wisdom? So that's what I did. I'd go to my local library and get a library card, and I would just kind of take out books whenever I could. If I had free time, I would sit in the library for hours and just read different topics, read topics on money, read things about relationships, read about psychology, philosophy, whatever I can get my hands on, I would sit there and I would read. I would inhale books at my local library. And even when I was at work, because I worked usually on average about, always work two jobs, but every once in a while I'd be working three jobs just to really try to like catch up and really make ends meet. But in between my shifts, in between customers at Walmart, in between washing dishes, when I had a few minutes to myself while washing dishes at an Irish pub called Kildare's, and in between customers coming in and out of this gas station I used to work at called Snappy's, I would read. I would just consume information, try to learn as much as possible, and then apply it as quickly as I could. And eventually, from reading a bunch of books, specifically philosophy books, I came across this concept known as eudaimonia. And I've already explained what eudaimonia is, but this concept to me blew my mind. In hindsight, it sounds so simple. Of course, get in better shape. Of course, try to make more money and try to live below your means. Of course, try to have better quality relationships, try to have a better quality social circle. It seems simple and it seems obvious in hindsight, but at that time in my situation, this was all like super mind blowing to me. I would never have stumbled across this like idea or this framework or these pillars, as I call them myself. And so, after kind of reading books about eudaimonia and kind of reading more self improvement books, the desire to improve myself and build these pillars led me to come up with this system in order to accomplish more in less time. It's kind of funny when you, I'll say this, it's funny how, like I said, when you have something, it's easy to not really value it. And the moment that thing is gone, you suddenly value it a lot more. I found myself really valuing education and learning more things, getting in better shape only once my health was deteriorating and I was obese and had a big gut, was super out of shape, when I couldn't go to class. And even when I tried to like sneak into classes, the teacher would kick me out. That's when you start to really value those things more. So I became hungry for information. I became hungry for success, hungry for self improvement. And I wanted to get all that stuff done as quickly as possible. So this is kind of where this framework that I'm going to share with you sort of came from. Now, long story short, during this time period while I was out of college, I kind of stumbled upon the idea of entrepreneurship, started to create my own business, and started to make a little bit of money from this business. And what this business was essentially was about, it was called College Conqueror, and the whole premise behind this business was I would learn information about how to study more effectively, how to manage your finances, basically learn things that the average college student probably was not exposed to or probably didn't know about unless their parents taught them these things that I certainly was not taught, things that I did not learn from college, things like taxes, finances. At the time, I had just stumbled upon this concept called real estate, didn't know what that was. So the whole purpose of College Conqueror was for me to do research, learn about these things, and then share them with other college students so that way they can get ahead. College and high school students, specifically juniors and seniors. And a big part of College Conqueror was me doing research on like actual scientific studies, doing research on individuals that were successful. So I would read books and I would also go, I forget the exact website. I think it was LexisNexis. It was a tool that as a student, even though I wasn't enrolled, there was a certain grace period before they kind of eliminated all of my email addresses and all of my access to certain resources that college students had access to. They hadn't gotten rid of it yet. So I would go on LexisNexis using the college kind of like server and just do research with like actual articles, like articles that most people have to pay for. I would just read them and get as much information as possible. And I would sort of write blog articles and teach students things that I learned. So, long story short, I would do that. And I stumbled across some of the common traits and tactics that the successful people use to go from extraordinary, or I'm sorry, from ordinary to extraordinary. And when I say the traits and tactics that people used, I'm talking about people in general. Kind of on this screen, you can see I have Alexander the Great, Benjamin Franklin, Jeff Bezos, Dwayne Johnson, George Washington. These tactics were used by these individuals, but they were also just used by your average person. That I shouldn't say average, but they were used by general people in the public. They were used by a college student that wanted to be the best college student. They were used by high school students that wanted to be valedictorian. Does that make sense? So it was interesting to me because despite these traits and tactics being relatively simple to emulate, I noticed that so many people weren't doing them. And I found that fascinating. So to me, I kind of took it upon myself to share these tactics and these traits with as many people as possible. So, what exactly is this formula that I keep talking about? What exactly is this formula that leads people to go from ordinary to extraordinary? What is the formula that people like Alexander the Great, Benjamin Franklin, Jeff Bezos, Dwayne Johnson, George Washington, just think of any figure throughout history. I'm sure they've used this formula or some type of some formula that was very similar to what I'm going to share with you. What exactly is this formula? I call this the 3P framework. And the 3P framework is super simple to understand, it's super simple to implement, and it's super simple to get results from. So, what is the 3P framework? The 3P framework is prioritize, plan, and produce. It's that simple. 3 steps: prioritize, plan, and produce. So, I'm going to go over all 3 of those steps and how you can use these steps in your own life today to get the results that you want. So, step 1, prioritize. People confuse action for progression. These two things are not the same. A lot of people just like the idea of doing things, but they don't understand that just doing things don't lead to the results that you always want. It's kind of like someone that goes to the gym and they just pick up any random weight and just start lifting it. They have no way to discern. They don't discern weight. They don't discern technique. They don't discern anything. They just pick up a random weight and they lift. They think they're doing something. They think they're building muscle. But in reality, because they don't understand how muscles are built, they're just wasting time. They're wasting effort. They're wasting energy. This is what most people do. Most people confuse action for progression. They think because they just do things, they're getting to their destination. There's a quick story I want to share with you. It's a story about some engineers that I believe kind of got stranded on this island. I don't know how true the story is, but I've heard it a few times, so I'm assuming it's a true story. These engineers get stranded from this island, and they're kind of stranded in this forest, and they all have a bunch of machetes. And so what these engineers decide to do is they just hack at these trees. They're just hacking at these bushes, hacking at these trees, hacking at everything they can at random, just hoping that they can find something, some kind of civilization, some kind of salvation, something. And one engineer decides to climb one of the trees and just look. He's just looking ahead. And he does see civilization. He does see a place where people can help them. But it's in the opposite direction of where his peers had been hacking. So they're all going in the wrong direction. He took initiative. He climbed one of the trees and figured, "Hey guys, let's stop. You guys are going in the wrong direction. You guys are doing things. You guys are taking action, but the problem is you're not taking action in literally the right direction. You're going in the exact opposite direction of where we should be going." Again, this is what a lot of people do. People do things, they take action, but the actions don't always lead to progression. And what I've come to learn is that progression comes from having an established goal and making objective progress toward that goal. And this idea of having an established goal is, I think, what people lack the most. I tend to find that a lot of people lack an established goal. They don't know where they're going. They don't have a destination. They lack a vision. And because they lack these things, they get lost. They ghost through life, as I call it. So, how exactly do you solve this problem? My recommendation is, first of all, set a macro goal. If you're brand new to goal setting, just set one goal. Set one goal that will lead to you accomplishing whatever you want to accomplish. And I know that sounds a bit difficult to kind of grasp. That might be hard to kind of pinpoint. But whatever you're doing now, if you have a piece of paper, just stop what you're doing and just write out a big goal. That's it. One big goal. Now, once you write out this big goal, take a second to write micro goals from the macro goal. So let's say, for example, your goal is to get in better shape. You want to gain 10 pounds of muscle. To the best of your ability, try to write the goals and the steps required to get 10 pounds of muscle. Some of those goals might be going to the gym more frequently, having a meal plan, having a certain routine, getting a personal trainer, getting a gym membership. Write all of these micro goals down. Of course, if that's not your gym, if that's not your goal to gain 10 pounds of muscle, that's fine. That's just an example. But hopefully you understand the point that I'm trying to make. Set a macro goal, and from that macro goal, set micro goals. And the thing you want to be sure to do is, once you set those micro goals, prioritize them from the most impactful to the least impactful. Like I said, action is not progression. There are going to be some goals that mean the most. There are going to be some goals that actively contribute to success in the biggest possible way. And there are other goals that don't really help you get to your destination very quickly. Now, once you kind of do that, I want to share this with you. This is sort of Mike the Entrepreneur, just to give you a better idea of what it looks like to kind of prioritize your goals. So this is Mike the Entrepreneur. Mike the Entrepreneur is very ambitious. He wants to write a book. He wants to stay in shape. He wants to give more time to his girlfriend. He's a busy, hardworking guy. he sometimes neglects his girlfriend. I'm sure if you're an entrepreneur or if you work very hard, you probably understand that. He wants to decrease his general overwhelm with projects he's taken on for his business. He takes on projects and campaigns that he believes will increase his revenue. He kind of takes them on at random. He doesn't always sit there and heavily analyze how fruitful these projects might be. Finally, he wants to decrease his frustration and overwhelm from his employees and contractors calling him randomly. At his company, he has many employees and many contractors that help him with these projects that he's working on to increase the revenue for the business. They constantly call him, but they call him at random, and this is frustrating to him. He feels like he can't get much done, and he feels stuck. So, I'm going to show you, kind of using this 3-step process, what we can do to help Mike out. And the first thing I'd recommend to Mike is prioritize by just visualizing a jar of rocks. This is kind of what I teach my clients and different people on my social media, on my live calls, and on my YouTube channel. What is it? What is this analogy, the jar of rocks? Picture this. You have a jar of rocks, and your objective is to put big rocks in there, small rocks, sand, and water. You need to fill the entire jar up with these 4 components. If you just throw things in haphazardly, if you put the water in first, then the pebbles, then the big rocks, etc., it's not going to work. You're going to overflow the jar and you're not going to be able to fit everything in there. What you need to do is put things in a certain order. The big rocks need to go in first, then the little rocks and the sand, finally the water. And as you can see kind of here in this presentation, the big rocks, the little rocks, and the water all sort of represent different types of tasks. The big rocks are the most important, most impactful tasks. The little rocks are things like emails, calls, stuff that's important, but you don't need to do them right now. You can do them later on. And then the water is the stuff that doesn't really matter that much. These are things like leisure, scrolling through social media, watching TV, things that are fine to do, but things you shouldn't do first. Does that make sense? I want to emphasize this point down here. You don't need to eliminate things. You just need to structure your day better for a consistent period of time. A lot of people think that you need to eliminate stuff that's unproductive or unhelpful. I won't get super deep into it right now, but I think that's a bad mindset to have. It's okay to watch TV. It's okay to play video games. It's okay to goof off. It's okay to let your mind wander, but you need to do those things after the important stuff's taken care of. Now, step 2, plan your day effectively. I tell people you need to be a general in your life. Your life is war, and the victory is personal success. Whenever you kind of read about, I like to read about different generals and kind of about different war tactics. And when you read about Alexander the Great or Napoleon, George Washington, I read about recently, they are very structured and they have a plan when they go into battle. They don't just walk onto the battlefield and hope for the best. Does that make sense? Now, there's obvious reasons to it. I think you can kind of gather what those reasons might be. But my challenge to you is this. If they understand that going into battle without a plan is essentially death and not productive, why do you go into your own life without a plan? Just think about that for a second. Really ponder that. Now, my suggestion to you, outline your day effectively so that way you can predict how your day will go. And I say within reason because in the real world, stuff comes up that you cannot predict. One day you're going to get sick and your entire day is going to get ruined. One day an emergency might happen. You might get to a car accident. Who knows? Anything could happen. So you can't plan the day out perfectly 100% of the time, every single day, but you can at least have a general plan in mind so that way you don't wake up confused or unaware of how your day should go. My suggestion is always this. Your day should never be left up to chance. You should always have control over your day to the best of your ability. Have a grasp on how your day is expected to go. And by doing this, you're almost guaranteed to have the best possible outcome. Now, let's go back to Mike the entrepreneur. Remember all of the different things he wanted to do. He wanted to get in shape, spend more time with his girlfriend or his wife. He wanted to have less frustration with his employees. This is what I would recommend Mike do. I'd recommend he pull out a planner, and a planner doesn't need to be super formal. I have one for free that you can download, but it could just be a piece of paper with times outlined on it. It could be your calendar app on your iPhone or your Android. It doesn't need to be complicated, but it just needs to function in a way that allows whoever's using it to outline their day by the hour. And what I would recommend Mike do is sit there and plot things out from the time he wakes up until the time he goes to bed, from most important to least important. This is going to vary from person to person, but to the best of his ability, I would suggest that. So as you can kind of see here, 6 a.m., Mike can wake up. That'll be his designated wake up time. From 7:30 a.m. to 8 a.m., he can exercise. 30 minutes is all it takes to have a good exercise. From 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., he's doing revenue producing activities only. He's not doing phone calls unless he can pinpoint that it's a revenue producing activity. He's only doing that. He's not answering employee, questions. He's not working on other projects. He's only doing specific stuff that he knows will generate revenue for his business. Then from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m., he has free time. He can do whatever else he wants to do to kind of create a buffer for himself. I have on here as well, from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m., he can take calls. So if his employees have like significant questions that they really need to ask him, that's the time when they can bring these questions to him. If he needs to make important phone calls to contractors, that's the time when he can make those important phone calls. From 7 p.m., that's his writing time, because I think I forgot to mention, but let's say Mike also wanted to write a book. This is the time where he can write at the end of the day. Why? Because it's not urgent, but it is important. Does he need to get it done in any specific time frame? Not really. It's a hobby. It's something he wants to do. This is the time to do it. And if he doesn't feel like it, or if he doesn't want to do it, or if he doesn't want to spend 5 days a week doing it, as you can see on this little calendar to the left, that's fine. He can use this time to hang out with his partner from 7 p.m. until he goes to bed. Now she has plenty of time. And he also has been able to get as much done as possible without feeling any guilt. He's making progress. And then also on the weekends, he has plenty of time to hang out with his fiance, his girlfriend, his wife, whatever, have their daytime. Or if he really feels like he needs to get a lot of work done urgently, he also has plenty of time to get work done. The key is to have a schedule set up, have a plan. Don't go into your day confused or not knowing what you're going to do. And real quick, my recommendation for this: plan your day out the night before. Take about 5 to 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes if you're new to this. And before you go to bed, make a calendar, just like you see Mike's here. It's super simple, but once you do it, you're going to find yourself getting so much more done. You're going to wake up knowing exactly what to do. And you'll find that since you know exactly what to do, you're not going to question yourself. There's not going to be much guesswork required. You're just going to be able to do it. Now, the final step of the 3P framework is produce. And this is something that I find a lot of people struggle with. A lot of people get in their heads when it comes time to actually produce. They try to wait for the perfect moment. They try to plan things out too much. They hyper plan. And my recommendation to this is just act. Now that you have a plan, this is the time to act. Take fast action and allow yourself the ability to course correct. You're not going to get something 100% right the first time you do it. It's these slight changes over time that will allow you to progress and to create something fantastic. When Jeff Bezos was first starting Amazon, he didn't create Amazon the way it is today on his very first day. When Mark Zuckerberg created Facebook, Facebook back then was not the way it is now. It took a lot of course correcting. It took a prototype that failed. He had to tweak a little bit, failed again, tweak a little bit, finally gets a sale, but it's not great, tweak a little bit. It takes consistent iterations to get to the final result that's acceptable. That's a multi-billion-dollar corporation. And I know for a lot of people that's a bit unrealistic, but hopefully you understand the point that I'm trying to make. Don't try to have the perfect product up front. Don't try to have the perfect day up front. Don't try to be perfect up front. Just act. Have a plan and act on the plan, and over time, course correct. And the key thing to take away is consistency is the key to progression. A lot of people, they'll be on the right path. They'll do what they need to do, but the issue is that they do it for too short a period of time. And I've made this mistake countless times in my own life. They do things not long enough. They don't allow things to actually flourish. They don't allow time for their seeds to grow, so to speak. So don't make this mistake. Be consistent. Have a plan and be consistent with acting on your plan. Now, this is pretty much the 3-step system that I wanted to share with you. Hopefully, I've been able to do this in under 30 minutes. But real quick, I do want to share one more quick story to help you kind of understand why just kind of acting and acting quickly is so important. Now, as I mentioned, I'm a huge fan of different kind of generals through history, one of which is Alexander the Great. I'm sure you've heard of him, but if you're not familiar with him, Alexander the Great was a Macedonian. He pretty much conquered basically the entire known world at that time. One of the things that I've I've read several different books and numerous podcasts on Alexander the Great, various YouTube videos, various documentaries. One of the things that Alexander the Great was so great at was he was hard to kind of ambush. And one of the reasons why he was so difficult to ambush is because he was able to tear down and assemble a campsite very quickly. Now, I don't want to go too deep into like the whole logistics of battle back then, but the ability to move and to counter your opponent, to find out that they were coming or they're approaching from X angle, and being able to move from where they're approaching and maybe get behind them or flank them or whatever was crucial. And one of the difficulties back then is people would have a campsite, and if an enemy's approaching, you kind of are a slave to your campsite, because your campsite is where your food is, where your rations are, it's where your animals are. If you have horses, it's where your armor, your weapons, everything is. So of course you don't want to leave that behind, because that's essentially a death sentence. But at the same time, if you sit for too long, you get ambushed, and that's also a recipe for disaster. So Alexander the Great was great at being able to assemble a campsite so his soldiers could rest, but also disassemble the campsite and tear it down so he couldn't be ambushed. And if he found someone that was going to ambush him, he was able to kind of flank them and kind of ambush them instead. And the key to this is speed. Speed is what allows him to do this. Speed allows him to tear down the campsite quickly and assemble it quickly. Whenever I have clients, one of the biggest things I notice is that they struggle with procrastination. And this is consistent with my clients, but also consistent when I do general research. People struggle with procrastination. Focus is the second thing, but procrastination is the main thing. What I have discovered is that procrastination typically derives from not knowing what to do or being unsure of the results. And my solution to both of those problems is just act quickly. If you can act quickly, you'll cure yourself from both of those problems. If you act quickly, you don't really need to know what to do, because as you're acting, you're course correcting. You're finding new ways to achieve the results you want. And being unsure of the results also doesn't matter, because if you're acting quickly, you're going to get small results here and there. You're going to get feedback here and there. And from the feedback, you can pivot, you can change your direction, you can course correct. So, again, I really want to make this clear. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't get analysis paralysis. Just act. Once you have a plan in place, act on the plan. Act on the plan consistently and course correct over time. Now, this is sort of my kind of quick guide to allow you to apply this to your own life. My suggestion to you, and this is what I suggest to my clients, try your best to win the majority of your days. You're not going to have a perfect year. You're not going to have a year where every single day of the year, all 365 days, is going to be a success. It could happen, but it's improbable. But what you can do is reward yourself for simply winning the majority of the year. And so, how do you do this? What's the breakdown to this? If you do one major task, one big rock, as I call it, that is you winning the day. That's it. Just one big rock. So, let's say, for example, we go back to Mike really fast. You're Mike. If Mike, if his main goal is to make more money for his business, increase the revenue, as long as he does one activity that leads to him increasing the revenue of his business, that is a win. That's it. Now, if he can do that 3 to 5 days within a week, he wins the week. And if he wins 2 to 3 weeks, he's won the month. And if he can win 6 to 8 months, he's won the year. Does that make sense? Now, with this in mind, you don't have to win every day. You can have a pretty terrible 2 months, pretty terrible 4 months. That's fine. As long as you pull it together for the other 8 months, for the other 6 months, the other 7 months, whatever, it's still a successful year. You're still getting further ahead than most people. You're still making progress on whatever goals and ambitions you have. And this is what matters the most. It's the long game that matters. Now, most people do not use this framework that I've shared with you. They don't use this 3P framework. What most people do is they end up repeating the exact same year every single year for their entire lives. There's a good quote by Benjamin Franklin, and I'm going to mess it up. But to paraphrase, he says most people die at the age of 25 and they're not buried until the age of 75. Just keep that in mind. Most people die at 25, they're not buried until they're 75. Most people live their entire lives on repeat, never achieving much, never accomplishing anything, never improving, never growing. Don't let this be you. Now, the final thing, let me help you achieve your goals. This framework that I shared with you, this short video, is enough to get your goals done. If you follow exactly what I shared with you step by step, if you follow the 3P framework, you will get more done. You will progress more in life. You will grow more. You will achieve your goals. You will get whatever you want, but you have to follow the framework. But I understand that for a lot of people, following the framework consistently is difficult. For a lot of people, they need someone to hold their hand. They need someone to kind of show them more techniques, more tips, give them more accountability. I totally understand that. To me, it's similar to going to the gym. There are some people that can go to the gym, that can make their own gym routine, that can diet themselves, that can hold themselves accountable, that can motivate themselves, go to the gym, lift the weights, do it 5, 6, 7 times a week, and they can continue that routine for years and they get the results they want. That's totally fine. Some people are good at doing that. But there's plenty of people that cannot motivate themselves. There are plenty of people that know like maybe the general idea of how to create a workout routine, but like don't know the actual steps to do it at least efficiently. There are people that know they can go on YouTube and look up the steps to do a dumbbell curl a certain way or do a bench press a certain way, but they don't really know how to get the form down exactly. Something just feels off. They need a personal trainer. That's totally fine. Some people need a trainer, some people don't. If you're one of the kind of people that needs a personal trainer, let me help you. Let me be that trainer for you. Now, I have a streamlined system that I use that I help my clients implement that has various guides, courses, follow up sessions, and action plans that guarantee you stay on track. My goal for you is to make sure that you stay on track and that you get work done. It's to make sure that you achieve the goals that you want. Now, I offer 1 month, no matter which, I offer two packages, a month to month package and a full package, full year. Both packages, you get a free month. My goal is to make sure that everyone that comes into my program gets results. I don't want anyone to leave unhappy. I don't want anyone to feel like they're not getting what they are paying for. So, what I do is for the first month, it's 100% free. There's no commitment, nothing at all. You'll still get access to all the programs. So even if you take the full month and you don't like it, you can keep everything. Keep all the courses, keep all the guides, keep everything I was going to share with you, all the action plans. Keep it all. I want to make sure you actually get your goals accomplished. But if after that first month you do like what I help you with, you do like the progress you're making, you do like the results you're getting, then it's $97 a month or it's $997 for the entire year if you want to pay up front. And that's about, I think it's about $130, $140 if you pay for the entire year up front. And you can also cancel anytime. I'm not one of those people that make you go through this long process to cancel. I'm not one of these people that make you go through a long process to refund. If it's midway through a month and you just can't afford it, or you feel like you just don't like the results you're getting, let me know. I'll refund you the entire month. Or if you want to cancel, let me know. I'll cancel the month and I'll refund whatever you paid, and that'll be it. No hard feelings. That'll be it. Like I said, my goal is not to take money from you. My goal is to actually help you, but only if you feel like you need help. So, with all that being said, I appreciate you for watching this video. I know I went a little bit over the 30 minutes to kind of give that little anecdote on Alexander the Great, but I hope it helps kind of contextualize everything. And then one final thing, if you do sign up today, I have a whole productivity bundle. It's called my Ultimate Productivity Bundle. You'll get access to the entire thing for free if you sign up today. It includes various guides, videos, and it also includes access to my Better Life Blueprint program, which is sort of a 30-day program I created a few years ago that helps you get in better shape, that helps you improve your finances, helps you improve your mindset, and it helps you improve your relationships with your peers and family. So if you're interested in that, sign up today and you'll get full access to that at no additional cost. You can keep it if you want to, or not use it if you don't want to. It's free, so you do whatever you want with it. But I appreciate you watching this video. I hope to hear from you soon. Until the next time, peace out.